Our words for today, lifted up, taken from the Gospel of John, chapter 3. Jesus said to Nicodemus, "You must be born from above. Just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the desert, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, so that everyone who believes in him may have eternal life." So Jesus is talking to Nicodemus and he's reminding him of what happened in the desert when the people disobeyed God and serpents were sent and they bit some of the people. And when they bit the people, they died. Well, what happened in the garden? Adam and Eve fell at the invitation of the serpent, the evil one. They, at the temptation of the evil one, they fell, they separated themselves from God, and they suffered the consequences of that thing. They suffered sin and death. And so that the remedy of those followers of God during the time of Moses, God instructed that a serpent be cast out of bronze, and that serpent be placed upon a high pole and placed in the desert. And when the people who had been bitten looked upon that bronze serpent lifted high on the pole in the desert, they would be saved. They would be healed. That was a precursor. That was a sign of Jesus to come. The fulfillment would be Jesus lifted high upon the cross. And just as those people in the desert who had been bitten by those serpents were saved, so now we are saved as we look upon that cross. And how are we saved as we look upon that cross? Brothers and sisters, when Jesus gave himself over to that death, what he was telling us to do was to look upon him, not in shame, but in awe, to realize that our God loved us that much. We see it in John, chapter 3, verses 16 in particular and forward. For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that the world might not be condemned, but that we might be saved, right? Not for condemnation's sake, but for salvation. He didn't send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but for salvation. So when we look upon that cross, when we lift our eyes up, yes, we know our guilt, but we know that we are set free from that guilt. How are we set free from that guilt? By the love that God has for us, by the love that Jesus has for us. And as we look upon that cross, we are reminded of that love. That is the testimony of that love. That is the testimony of the immensity of the love that Jesus has for us. Looking up and seeing Jesus on that cross is the testimony of the immensity of the love that God the Father has for us in sending his only Son, Jesus, into the world to die for us, that we might be reconciled to him. His great desire to be with us forever in heaven. The great sign of that is Jesus lifted up on the cross for our freedom, for our salvation, that we might know the love that God has for us. Not that Jesus had to die for us, but that he chose to die for us, and that he chose as the sign of that great love, the cross. And that is the thing that we look upon and find that great testimony, brothers and sisters. Make it a part of your daily exercise to look upon that cross and be reminded of that great love that God has for us, that great love that Jesus has for us, and allowing himself to be lifted upon the cross that we might be free. Lifted up, our words for today.